Now, we'd like to start the final item on the program of this year's annual meeting, the closing session. Through the entirety of our annual meeting program, we've had 3 plenary sessions and 5 technology sessions. Summaries of those lively discussions and insightful presentations will be available on our official website in due course. So please check our website for updates. In addition, all sessions will be available on demand. Please take advantage of these features to view the sessions that interest you. And now I would like to invite Mr. Ishizuka Hiroaki, Chairman of the New Energy and Industrial Technology Development Organization, to give us an address on behalf of the ICEF host. Mr. Ishizuka, if you please.
Yes, thank you. Good morning and good evening. I'm Hiroaki Ishizuka, Chairman of NEDO. First, I would like to express my heartfelt congratulations regarding the award of the Nobel Prize in Physics to Dr. Shukuro Manabe of Princeton University. As an ICEF organizer and as a citizen of Japan, I am delighted that he has received this award, which seems to have been timed to coincide with the holdings of ICEF 2021. His achievements are greatly contributing to addressing climate change, and I would like to once again pay tribute to Dr. Manabe's success. On behalf of the host organizations, it is an honor to speak at this year's closing session. Due to the pandemic, this year's meeting has been once again held online. So I want to thank all discussants who participated both online and in person, as well as our global audience. I also would like to thank Mr. Tanaka, Chair of the ICEF Steering Committee, and all committee members for their great contribution. And many thanks to the Secretariat members for their hard work and diligent preparations. As Japan's largest funding organization, NEDO has 2 key missions. Firstly, addressing energy and environmental problems, and secondly, developing innovative industrial technologies. In cooperation with private companies, universities, and public research institutions, we continue to research innovative technologies. It has truly been an honor to co-host ICEF 2021 with MEDI. Japan has declared it will aim for carbon neutrality by 2050, joining more than 120 countries with similar declarations. More than ever, the world has shown it is committed to tackling climate change. At ICEF 2021, we discussed how to achieve the challenging goal of carbon neutrality while concurrently considering the different circumstances of each country and the stakeholder, focusing on the gender balance issue in last year. This year, ICEF looks to encourage young people to join future discussion, as they will be the ones leading society in 2050. Achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 will not be easy. We must use existing low-carbon technologies as well as implement innovative solutions. It is also important to test the applicability of these technologies both in the short and the long term. Furthermore, by looking at technical areas within policy measures, the private sector, and individual behavioral change, we discussed specific pathways needed to be taken with regard to 2030 and 2050. In Japan, this week is designated as Tokyo Beyond Zero Week, where 8 international conferences on energy and environmental issues are being held. Among them, ICEF focused our discussions on how to realize and implement innovations, with other conferences taking place this week, including the International Conference on Carbon Recycling and the Hydrogen Energy Ministerial Meeting. I hope we take this opportunity to further collaborate and encourage others to work toward our common goal. NEDO pledges to work closely with our partners, both Japanese and international, to reach carbon neutrality. Finally, let me introduce the speakers of this session, all who happen to be members of the ICEF Steering Committee. Firstly, Mr. Sandalo will introduce ICEF's roadmap regarding carbon mineralization. Then, Dr. Yamaji will present statement from the Steering Committee. And lastly, Mr. Tanaka, the chair, will summarize this year's meeting. Please note that recordings of ICEF sessions will be available on the ICEF website. This concludes my remarks. I hope we can overcome the ongoing pandemic and meet in person here in Tokyo next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ishizuka. And next, Mr. David Sandalo will present his remarks on the ICEF roadmap in a video message. Mr. Sandalo is an ICEF Steering Committee member, the inaugural fellow at the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University, and co-director of Energy and Environment Concentration at the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University.
Thank you, and congratulations on yet another successful ICEF conference. The dialogue was tremendous, and the attendance set records. I was especially thrilled to see the participation of young people from all over the world. The topics we're discussing in ICEF will not be solved in this generation. They will require sustained work and commitment over the course of many years and several generations. Today, I will talk briefly about the ICEF Innovation Roadmap Project, which I am honored to chair. Our project has two goals. The first is to use the ICEF platform to help promote the development and deployment of clean energy technologies. And the second is to promote global awareness of the ICEF brand. Today, we are releasing the 9th ICEF roadmap. It's available on the ICEF website. It's a draft for comment, and we are keen for any comments that you may have. The topic of this roadmap is carbon mineralization. That's a term that is unfamiliar to many people who pay attention to climate change, I think, and we hope to change that or help change that with this roadmap. So what is carbon mineralization? It's a process, a natural process, in which carbon dioxide becomes bound in rocks as a solid mineral. This happens in nature very slowly, as certain rocks mainly those containing calcium and magnesium, are exposed to carbon dioxide, and that permanently removes small amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere each year. We believe that carbon mineralization can help fight climate change and that there are ways to significantly enhance the amount of carbon dioxide that's removed from the atmosphere each year using this natural scientific process. There are two broad approaches. One of them is injecting CO2-rich fluids into rock formations deep underground. And the second is exposing crushed rocks on the Earth's surface to carbon dioxide-bearing gases. And both of those lead to this natural chemical reaction where carbon dioxide becomes bound up in rocks. Rocks that are appropriate for carbon mineralization are found all over the world. And here's a map. We have more information on this in our roadmap. But you can see in particular that there's lots of rock appropriate for this in Japan, and also many places around the world. We discuss underground injection, sometimes called in situ mineralization, in our roadmap, and here's a basic diagram of some different types. Just a simple method like spreading crushed rocks over wide areas can help to sequester large amounts of carbon and can actually help improve fertility in farm fields and elsewhere. There's some real co-benefits that are potential with this, that are possible with this technique. All over the world, mining and industrial wastes contain rocks that are potentially helpful for carbon mineralization. And there are ways to use these waste piles to help sequester carbon and manage the environmental risks that these waste piles present to the local environment. So there's some real win-win opportunities in this area. We have a number of findings in our roadmap. Maybe most important, we estimate that with strong and sustained policy support, carbon mineralization could remove 1 gigaton of CO2 per year by 2035 and 10 gigatons per year by 2050. Today, total emissions of carbon dioxide are just under 40 gigatons a year. CO2 equivalent emissions are 50 gigatons a year. So this is a potentially very important contribution to net zero emissions. There are a number of strengths to this, to carbon mineralization as a strategy for fighting climate change. The resource is effectively unlimited. CO2 is permanently removed from the atmosphere, bound into solid rock, and very important, the chemical reactions here do not require energy inputs. They happen naturally. There's some challenges also. In nature, this happens very slowly. We need to find ways to accelerate it. The commercial value of the products here are generally very low, and there's almost no recognition or support for policies in this area from governments around the world. We think field pilot and demonstration projects could really make a big difference in moving this agenda forward, and recommend them highly and discuss this in our map. We have 4 specific recommendations. 1, that government should invest in R&D in this area. 2, that this should be part of the portfolio of climate change mitigation options that policymakers would consider. And then we think there's big opportunities for companies here. Mining companies in particular should seek opportunities for carbon mineralization in their exploration and production activities. But beyond that, any company that has a net zero emissions commitment should consider carbon mineralization as part of its portfolio of options. Of course, reducing its own emissions first, but then looking at offsets in this area. So that's a short description of our roadmap. If you would like more, please go to the website and download it. And then please send comments to ICEF2021@gmail.com. ICEF2021@gmail.com. That email address is in the roadmap itself. Again, congratulations to all on a very successful ICEF conference. All the best.
Well, thank you for your attention. And next, we would like to ask Dr. Yamaji Kenji, an ICEF Steering Committee member, President and Director General of Research Institute of Innovative Technology for the Earth, and Professor Emeritus at the University of Tokyo, to present a statement on behalf of ICEF. Dr. Yamaji, if you please.
Oh, thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm Kenji Yamaji, a member of the Steering Committee of ICEF. It's my honor to be given the role of reporting the ICEF 2021 statement. Slide, please. Next, please. The 8th annual meeting of the Innovation for Cool Earth Forum, ICEF 2021, was held online on October 6 and 7, 2021, as an initiative of Tokyo Beyond Zero Week 2021, a series of 8 conferences that deal with a wide range of energy and environmental issues. More than 2,000 people from governments, international organizations, industry, and academia participated in this online event, representing 87 countries and regions. As a result, ICEF2021 is releasing the following statement based on a series of discussions under the main theme of pathways to carbon neutrality by 2050, accelerating the pace of global decarbonization. Next, please. 1. Necessity of realistic discussions. More than 120 countries have declared their intent of achieving carbon neutrality so far. ICEF welcomes this trend of nation-led decarbonization. Yet, according to the IEA, carbon dioxide emissions temporarily dropped in 2020 in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, but they have begun to increase again. The ambitious goals can only be achieved through policy, socio-economic, and behavioral change, as well as green innovations. We need many more in-depth discussions on what technologies should be introduced in order to realize carbon neutrality, how they should be integrated into industry and society, and in what time frame. Making it happen would also require efforts to change the mindset of companies and individuals and innovation in government policies. Next, please. 2. A variety of pathways. Economic structures and natural environments vary among different countries and regions, and the energy supply and demand systems affected by them are accordingly diverse. For this reason, realizing the policies and energy mix appropriate for each country is crucial, and the timing of achieving carbon neutrality may differ depending on the country and region. Therefore, international cooperation needs to be promoted in ways that it would be mutually beneficial based on this understanding of national or regional differences. In this regard, developed countries have important roles to play in supporting developing countries. In the civil society, nobody must be left behind in achieving carbon neutrality. Next, please. 3. Roles of innovations. First part, keeping in mind the importance of the 1 and 2 above, ICEF2021 discussed innovation in both technology and society in the short and long-term time frames that will lead to practical pathways to achieve carbon neutrality. We will need to accelerate multifaceted innovations, namely policy, business, and behavior. The government will be required to go beyond conventional energy and environmental policies to encourage game changes and paradigm shifts in the private sector. And the private sector actors are responsible not only for creating technologies, products, and services, but also for taking action to transform the entire supply chain and guide the transformation of the industrial structure. People's awareness as well as behavioral change is required to achieve carbon neutrality. It is encouraging to see many visible and innovative trends in each category, which is mutually interrelated. Every stakeholder must take action to achieve carbon neutrality. Next, please. Part 2 of roles of innovation. We have discussing various technological fields that play pivotal roles in the pathways to carbon neutrality, such as renewables and hydrogen. ICEF2021 focused on 5 specific technology areas among them, namely digital technologies, energy system integration, nuclear power, food systems, and negative emission technologies, and discuss their challenges and possibilities. two fields, digital technologies and energy system integration, are strongly related in the carbon neutral society. Green by digital has significant potential as a game changer for both energy management systems and services in the short and long term. At the same time, green of digital, such as semiconductors to reduce energy demand, is required. Energy system integration with advanced technologies or sector coupling, which interconnect various energy carriers and sectors, can optimize the society-wide energy supply and demand. Next, please. Part 3 of roles of innovations. Nuclear energy will also play a role with the development of innovative technologies for existing and future reactors, particularly flexible, advanced nuclear reactors such as small modular reactors are getting attention. Greenhouse gas emissions from food systems can be mitigated by technologies and procedural changes in production and distribution, as well as agriculture with information and communication technologies. And in the long term, consumers' eating behaviors will also have large impact. Negative emission technologies, namely direct air carbon dioxide capture and storage, biomass carbon removal and storage, and carbon mineralization will be essential in order to neutralize greenhouse gas emission in the hard-to-abate sectors, thus requiring continuous investment to reduce cost of these technologies. The need to research cost and benefits and associated risks of geoengineering was also pointed out. 4. In closing, ICEF2021 invited the younger generation who will play a central role in the society of 2050 to the discussion. This younger generation we invited to the discussions. The intent was to highlight cross-generational dialogue and inclusion to take the next step in better understanding the different perspectives. ICEF will continue to welcome the participation of the younger generation in its discussions to encourage the involvement of diverse stakeholders. By continuing these activities, we hope that realistic discussions will become further widespread toward the realization of carbon neutrality. And this is the next slide, please. Infographics of ICEF 2021. And this time, participation of the younger generation is highlighted. They are developing and choosing pieces of measures to realize the pathway to the 2050 carbon neutrality under the spirit of inspire, involve, and internationalization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Yamaji. And to conclude the program, we would like to ask Mr. Tanaka Nobuo, Chair of the ICEF Steering Committee, to summarize ICEF 2021. Mr. Tanaka, if you please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Nobuo Tanaka, the Chair of the Steering Committee of ICEF. I quoted Yuval Noah Harari, the author of *Sapiens*, in his recent book, 21 Lessons for the Human Beings in the 21st Century, at the first plenary session. According to him, there are 3 global risks for human beings in the 21st century, and climate change is definitely the one. This is exactly the reason why we are gathering here. And yet, he says that nationalism, which is very popular among politics in these days, cannot solve these global problems. To address the global climate challenge, he urges us to elect politicians with global identity. Are there such politicians on Earth? I believe ICEF is a forum for innovative people with global identity. We have more than 2,000 attendants from 87 countries to this virtual 8th ICEF. I hope we can respond to the challenge by Harari through the International Dialogue for Beyond Zero Emission Pathways, and ICEF believes innovation is a key for decarbonization. Technological innovation and innovation policies to support R&D were the subject. It has expanded to reform of regulations and systems to facilitate innovation. This year, we expanded our scope to the innovation of 3 pillars of innovation themselves. They are government policies, consumer behaviors, and business models. Europe is the leader here, but developing countries should engage more, and Japan should re-engage ourselves for innovation. ICEF thinks carbon removal technology like DAX is very important to set global standards as a backstop technology, as Yamaji Sensei explains. We made a roadmap for bikers, biomass carbon removal and storage with 5 gigaton of CO2 removal potential last year. And this year, carbon mineralization with 10 gigaton of carbon dioxide removal potential. Carbon mineralization sounds very new for many people, including me, but potential is big. And Japan also has a huge potential. Thank you, David, for the excellent roadmaps. Last year, we focused on gender. There is a strong correlation between climate friendliness and gender balance in corporate decisions and government policy making. I am very happy to tell you that more than 50% of the panelists in this ICEF are women. Climate change is not gender neutral. Women suffer more, but they can change the situation by participating more actively to the decision making. Infographics of this year adds focus on the youth in addition to women, as Yamaji Sensei explains. Climate change is not generation neutral either. Young generation may suffer more by the negative impacts of climate change than elders, but they can change their future by voicing and engaging to the decision process. This year, we invited young people to each panel. They are actively participating and leading the discussion. In the first plenary session on policies, Ms. Tetis Giorgio for European Youth Parliament and Ms. Rena Kawasaki, the UGLENA's Chief Future Officer, eloquently asked attention and trust of business leaders and policymakers to the youth. Certainly, green parties in Europe are driven by the youth. Why not in Japan? Ms. Natalie Jones of University of Cambridge introduced new industrial policy concept for sustainability. I am very impressed with her. Mr. Lakimov, in the second plenary on consumer behavior, urges us to recruit right messengers to communicate with the youth to increase recognition of the issue. Ms. Aditi Velma, in the nuclear session, lead a discussion by proposing inclusive design concepts for small modular reactor development with local community. This is different from large size reactor because in that case, the beneficiary and the locality are different. In the SMR, they are common. She called this design justice. Miss Carrie Dahlgren in the digital section candidly pointed out that general distrust of people against energy sector is the issue. Digitalization may solve the gap by making people on board. In the plenary session 3, Business Innovation, Ms. Antonina Scheer urged business to share the value of climate justice and immediate action. Their voices must be much more seriously heard. And ICEF will soon organize the youth meeting to hear their voices to improve our mission and operation. In conclusion, let me say that women, youth, innovation nexus starts driving the world for carbon neutrality through ICEF 2021. On behalf of all members of the steering committee, I thank all panelists and audience for your exciting discussion and wonderful questions. See you all physically next year for ICEF 2022 in Tokyo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. And this concludes the Innovation for Cool Earth Forum 8th Annual Meeting. We hope this year's annual meeting provided all attendees with a fruitful opportunity to learn about the latest technological innovations. And as this year's meeting has been held virtually, I would like to ask all participants to give us feedback to help us improve the next meeting. Please access the online survey on the ICEF virtual meeting website. And ICEF will hold its next annual meeting in autumn 2022 in Tokyo. Hope to see you there. Thank you very much for participating in the ICEF 8th annual meeting, and see you again next year.